Welcome in to the third segment of these fine coaches here on Sports 731 Network. Remember, you can watch these and listen to them on Sports 731's app, sports731.com, and also on Sports 731's Facebook page. We'll tell you a little bit, and at the end of the show, I'll tell you more about what's coming up starting Friday the 14th, 10 o'clock. Going to have some great, knowledgeable football people come in every Friday, discuss the games that are be played, and also pick some games. These guys, some of them will be our play-by-play, some will be our color analysis people, but it's going to be a football Friday you don't want to forget every Friday on Sports 731 Network's Facebook.com and app. Now, we try to bring you these sports specials from time to time. We got the one-man gang on this one. We've had two on some of our other shows. Robert Rooks did 3, and there's still one more for you people that have questions to cut on that one, because 70 to the present takes a little bit of time. And here's a man that has lived some of the history, and he and I have done this before, but we're going to do some new material and some of the old material. And after I give him a little bit of an introduction, his career goes back to Ripley High School, which is his hometown. Mm-hmm. He's one of the finest coaches in the state at Union City, but a great player, including a Red Hat crew quarterback. Now, people will explain that to you, but he did that voluntarily, besides being one of the best kickers to ever play in the Gulf South Conference. And I've got Randy Barnes here, who spent 28 seasons at one high school and as head coach, and or 21 of them were as head coach. And we'll let him go through that. But Randy, you sent me a great introduction, but I think you need to pick it up. And you played for a guy I respected so much, and he turned into a good volleyball official, Maurice Kelly, and a TWSAA. But you played in a stadium that's named for Robert Rooks' grandfather in Tiny Knee Stadium, which is being refurbished right now. But I'll let you pick it up anywhere in the 60s you want to,
Sure.
and pick it up from there and tell them who Randy Barnes really is.
Well, I played at, as I said, I graduated from Ripley High School in '69. Maurice Kelly was my head coach. A lot of good stories. Very innovative, creative kind of coach. He was used first. Really, I understand from other coaches first to really use football film a lot. Back then, you only filmed the home games, but we filmed all our games, and we're happy for that. And then Robert Rooks' granddaddy was Tiny Knee. He was my track coach. He was also my daddy's coach in 1929. So Tiny Knee built the stadium. It was called Tiny Knee Stadium. So that's Robert Rooks' granddaddy. Robert and I are the same age. And I'll never forget, we allowed Robert Rooks and them to have an undefeated season at Brownsville because we played them last game of the season, and we thought we were going to beat them. They beat us 54-0. And I told Robert that I learned the words to Brownsville's fight song by halftime because they were so far ahead and they played it all the time. But that was Rocky Felker and all that bunch. Went to UT Martin, played Bob Carroll, football there. Bob Carroll, I was a kicker. Started off as a tight end, and then what you were talking about a while ago, my senior year, I was the scout team quarterback. Kind of funny, and that's where I hooked up with Larry Shanks. He was one of the graduate assistants at that time. And I was 2 times all conference there, and still, I don't know how it's still there, but it's still the record for the longest field goal at 53 yards, and we were toe pokers. We kicked straight ahead, so that was kind of funny. That it's been tied a couple of times, but Bob Carroll was a great football coach. They won the national championship for college division back in 1967 there, and Coach Carroll was the first coach for 4-year football there. And then after that, I went to work with Larry Shanks. We coached at Larry was a GA there. We coached at Houston County High School for 2 years. And a funny thing about that, I see Carlton Flatt. Well, he's passed now, but I used to teach Carlton. We allowed at Houston County Carlton Flatt to win his first state championship by waxing us in the semifinals. They were single A, only had 100 kids in the school, and I just knew we were going to win. but it didn't turn out that way.
Those 100 kids came from a lot of
They
different
came from
places.
a lot of places. They really did. And I had the privilege of coaching with Carlton Flatt in the used to have Tennessee Kentucky All-Star game.
Wish we still did.
I really too. It was really great. Had the privilege of being there twice, and that was really great. The top 35 kids in Tennessee played top 35 out of Kentucky, and it's sad that kind of went by the wayside, and probably several reasons for that. But I was actively involved with TACA. We started the Tennessee Athletic Coach Association. Actually, guys like John Tucker, and they were actively involved. I was on the board of directors there, and I later became president of the TACA.
You sure did, because I remember when you did that. Because Jerry Hayes took my place as a board member.
As a board member,
yeah, I was
right.
kind of more at that time representing basketball.
Right.
Jim Cartwright.
Jim Cartwright started at Columbia. Old Columbia football coach started that, and it was really good. Ronnie Carter, you remember, was an ex officio member,
Yes.
and it seemed like we had more say-so in what was going on. But as a lot of things, it just sort of has faded off a little bit over the years.
TACA has started. They have a all-star game. It's an East-West game, and it's good because I've done the play-by-play the last 3 years. But other people, they've had some great play-by-play come in there. People do it. The voice of MTSU that replaced Dick Palmer did it a couple of years, and it's good. But the Kentucky-Tennessee, man, that was there's
awesome.
a little hatred involved in that game
that
too.
was big time in that. We played it. We'd alternate. We'd play at Neyland Stadium one year, and we'd go up and practice for a week, and then we'd play in Lexington. But it was really good. We had a lot of great players in Tennessee. You don't realize if you put them all together how many good players there are in this state. And but it just kind of faded off, and they wanted to go more to an East-West game, and I guess it's financial consideration. But then I came to Union City with Larry Shanks in 1975. We came there. I came as an assistant coach, and I was an assistant there 7 years, and I was a head coach starting in 1982 through 2002. I spent 21 seasons there. And then I retired, and I worked 8 years at UT Martin as for Jason Simpson, Coach Simpson, who's still there. I was director of football operations, and we were fortunate enough to win an OVC championship while I was there. And I guess I was fortunate to hang around with his son, who would hang around on the sidelines and throw passes with me. And Lord, he's now playing for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yes,
Ty Simpson.
And Dresser Wynn from Dresden, I think, still with the Rams.
I'm not certain if he is
I think
or
he
not.
is, but
And then
Ty, what a great kid.
Yeah, and then he's got a younger son that's tearing it up too, Graham.
Do you know that Graham played in the championship football game, the championship basketball game? Westview won the football game. The only team that really in the state of Tennessee played Chattanooga Prep well and was probably, well, it was one game, but probably a couple of pitches. If they could, he didn't throw that game. He's a all-state type catcher,
Right.
but he can pitch. He could have played in 3 championship games in the
Wow.
same year last year had Martin one more ball game or
Well,
Westview.
I tell you, they're a great family. People don't realize how good a coach Coach Simpson is, and so I was fortunate to have in my life Maurice Kelly and Tiny Nee and Bob Carroll and Larry Shanks, and I'll be honest, I came along coaching at a great time when I had the likes of Jack Kane and John Tucker and Glenn McAdams, Walter Kilzer, Jim Poteet, Jerry Hayes. I'm just going down the list here.
I think
Don
Richard
Cody.
was still in his last years at JCM.
That's right. Richard was there, and we had it was a different era. Coaches, we had to literally exchange films in person. You didn't have the exchange today like they do over the internet. And it takes some of the personality out of it. We knew all the assistants on the other teams. Fred Johnson would have a get-together. We would go to a lot of coaching clinics and be around. Buddies over in Huntington, you had Jimmy Pritchard in there, Mike Mansfield, or great coaches, there. And the list goes on and on and on. And so we were able to I was able in my lifetime to see us go from conferences to playoffs to what I think way too many teams in the playoffs, and we played in bowl games.
When 0-10 teams, and people don't tell me they didn't make it. There are 0-10 teams that have made the playoffs because it was a 4-team region.
Exactly, and I was when I tell people we played in 7 bowl games, they think you're crazy. What's that? I mean, we at Union City played 7 bowl games, and you were talking earlier when they started playoffs, only one team made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I know our 1983 and 84 team, we won 9 games, and we didn't even make playoffs.
Much like O'Neill and
That's
them
what
did.
we were
talk-
talking about,
Your
yeah.
thoughts about that, and let's add the 10-0 Haywood County 1969 Tomcats
Oh,
to
man,
that didn't make the playoffs.
Oh,
And that was their year to win the state.
that was, and I don't know if we had the playoffs in '69.
The
I think it started
69-70 school
Yeah,
year.
it was-
They were 10-0.
They were 10-0. We played them, and John Hooper was their coach.
Yeah.
And
We was on a point system then. That's the
Oh,
reason they missed out. They played what would now be a single A team.
Is that
in the
what
way they
happened?
classify, and I think they missed the playoffs by 1 point.
oh my goodness, well we were. I think we'd won 7 or 8 games, and we just knew we would have a big chance, big rivalry. But I was fortunate to play in the Big Ten Conference.
Yeah.
It was the best conference in West Tennessee by far. I mean, it was some war daddies in there every week. You better buckle up. And,
Oh yeah,
and that's
Well,
all. That's all. We
Well,
ever
you
done.
also got to coach in a conference that not many people know about because it only lasted a few years because of the playoffs. But the Midwest,
Midwest
But they had
Conference,
some good teams in that
We
Midwest
really did.
Conference.
The Midwest Conference was kind of a collection of schools that, from the Big Ten, there were teams in the Big Ten. Union City was in the Big Ten for a long time, and then about mid-'60s they dropped out. Fell on hard times. '60s wasn't very good for Union City football at that time. They were a small school, and conferences is I think I heard Coach Henley talk about. Conferences didn't care about what classification you were in. Halls was in the Big Ten at one time.
Yes.
And schools that were larger had such an advantage in the conference, but you had your rivalries. When I was at Ripley, we played Covington, Dyersburg, count on that. Somerville had a team, Parish Grove.
Somerville actually
Somerville
played
had
once
good-
upon a time.
They
in the
did. They
Big
had a
Ten.
really good program there at one time. They were really good. And, of course, you had some passing through. Milam was in there. I believe they were. Trenton was in the Big Ten at one time.
Yes.
And then some of the Midwest schools were Milan and Humboldt and Union City. I can't call all of them.
I think Trenton wound
Trenton
up in
was
the Midwest.
in the Midwest, and we had a Midwest Conference champion, and we were Coach Shanks was the head coach, and we won the Midwest Conference in 1976, and we also we were in the playoffs. It was a crazy point system, and I
Yes.
think about 5 different things had to happen for us to be able to make the playoffs. So it was the first time the school in '76 we went to the playoffs in '76 and got beat by Memphis Mitchell over at UTM Field on a real cold night. But it kind of set the stage for us as far as in the program in Union City, seeing what it was. And they still had the Civitan Bowl. You remember that?
Civitan Bowl.
Civitan Bowl was in Union City. It's a great bowl they had there. And the bowls began to phase out as they began to add more teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, Huntington had the Gordon Browning Bowl.
Had the Gordon Browning Bowl.
Milan had an Exchange Bowl, and Jackson did too, but the Milan one had another title too. Haywood had the little Cotton Bowl at one time, and of course Bud and O'Neill mentioned that Henderson had the Little Liberty Bowl. And there was more than that. You go up to the Tobacco Bowl in Middle Tennessee, and that one time very prestigious. And the Clinic Bowl was probably where the first time a playoff game played in a bowl game to win the state title, and then it grew from there in the playoff system. And I don't know of any bowls anymore. I know Zion Christian Academy played in a little bowl game about 10 years ago, and that's the last one I heard of. But they pretty well died out.
Well, they were big. You had to win 7 games to
Yeah.
be in a bowl game. And so we played Brownsville actually in 1983. Union City played Brownsville. Actually, we won that game 6-0. I got to tease Robert about that in his book. But Rufus Laster was the coach. You remember Coach Laster?
I remember Rufus quite well
And his brother coached at Gallatin there
Yes.
for some time.
sometime.
And so it was those were just great games. We played Bartlett one time, and they're the biggest school in the state. And the bowls were really good. You matched up against people, and you knew, Joe, it was going to be your last game of the season. It was it. It was going to need uncertainty about you going to play the next week. So you could have events during the week for your seniors. And always bowl games were on Saturday, and the kids would wear coat and ties, have a banquet after it's over with, give out the trophies. A lot of good memories, and it's kind of a shame they've kind of gone that way.
Oh, it is, because some of the bowl games actually had like a little packet for you with some, and some of it was good stuff. I got there was one that we went to at Jackson High. We actually got watches. Now, were they the most expensive? No, but they weren't the least expensive either. They were good watches, and you could get it. Some of them had a patch that you could get, and you put that on a jacket or just put it up at home.
They would always give them, patches, because kids would have silver tambo and iron. And they'd get a certificate and have a meal, and it's just really a neat kind of deal.
It's almost like something's missing with them not around. Playoff system, the TSSAA has gotten close, except for you made a key thing. There's too many teams in it. You don't need 1-9 or 0-10 in a playoff.
Well, here's some math. I think you and I have talked about it. When I was coaching in my career, it started off, there were about 100. There were 3 classes. There were 120 schools per classification, because there's approximately about 360 schools that play football. So you do the math on it. So you're playing single A or double A. There's 120 schools there. Today, we got 6 classes of public schools, and then we got 3 privates, because the privates were in with the publics at that time. They were in that figure. Today, you have around 40 to 44 schools per classification, and I think about 32 of them make the playoffs.
Yeah, 32 have to.
And I don't know about in my coaching era was, if you weren't good enough to make the playoffs, it's time to put up your Christmas tree lights. Yeah. I mean, your season was over. You played in the bowl if you were good enough, but nobody with 4-6 or 5-5.
And you definitely didn't have my favorite one, the 0-10 team. That there's 2 of them have made the state.
And they
playoff.
Put the banners in the gyms when you made the playoffs. It's like making the playoffs was a big thing. I'm not so sure it's that way today. I think it's just expected to be in the playoffs.
Oh, if you're a coach, you're on the hot seat if you don't even get that 4th seat. And
the 4th seed.
What if we cut it back to just 2 teams? 3 might make it. The only thing is that year that I talk about with Northside, Lexington was 9-1, Northside was 9-1, and Bolivar was 9-1. Northside beat Lexington, Lexington beat Bolivar, and Bolivar beat Northside by 1 point, and had the tiebreaker in their favor over Lexington. But only 1 team went that year to the playoff. We got to have at least 2 teams going. 3 might be a better deal, but 4 is too many, because 4 is going to have a losing record.
Joe, I agree with you. 2 was a good. When it went to 2, it opened up doors for us. We were able to get in the playoffs. Because our league, you look at Humboldt back in the day of Jack Kane and all the Danny Now and people like that, they had some great football players. So did Milan, so did Trenton, so did Huntington, and so did we. And you throw in a Martin Westview in there too, and other teams around.
Well, do you remember when it was just Martin before it became Westview, and they had that long winning streak?
They were in the Real Foot Conference.
Danny Walker, Dr. Danny Walker, the vet now.
Absolutely.
I think he's teaching at some classes in the Ag Science Department at UTM.
I believe that's
right
correct.
Now. But, man, what a quarterback he was.
Yeah, there were some great kids in that class, and then they were in the Real Foot Conference. And funny story, Jim Graves was coaching at Westview, and then he goes to Union City, and they're the ones that end the record for them. He coached.
That's right. I had forgotten about that. Well, let's do this. And we're speaking with Randy Barnes. We're here on a Sports 731 Network special, and we have football programming starting the 14th coming up that you don't want to miss. 10 o'clock the morning of the 14th here in August, and then the next week on the 21st, tons of football, and you can watch it. It doesn't cost you anything like the National Federation does. And good coaches like – sometimes I wish back when you were coaching. I was never anything but a football assistant, and I was a head basketball coach. And that was another thing. And didn't you coach a little track too at one time?
Oh, yeah, I did. I've actually been of course, back in our day, you coached a little bit of everything. I've been a head basketball coach at Houston County, and I don't know how good it was, but I enjoyed it. And I've been head baseball coach, did that for 6-7 years at Union City. And then I was the head track coach. But I'm still involved with track. I'm actually probably the biggest track meet in West Tennessee now is the Union City Rotary Relays. Yep. And I'm still the chairman. I still do that. after all these years, I still headed up with our Rotary Club.
Yeah,
And
you came from a school that had
I
a big
had track.
but they hadn't been able, now in 2 years
I had a great,
or so, not have the Ripley Relays.
I haven't been able to. Tiny Nee was the track coach, and the Ripley Relays was the biggest track meet in West Tennessee. And I was very fortunate to run track for him. I was a pole vaulter and a hurdler and ran the mile relay, and so had a good background in track. Tiny Nee was outstanding track himself, as Robert has alluded to, his grandfather, how good he was. I think he played at Wabash.
Well, the only pole vaulter we had, and Jim Richardson only did that 1 year, and when he started getting recruited, he gave up pole vaulting.
Yeah, well, I was about 50 pounds lighter, too, when I did that, too. I couldn't do that. But, yeah, I did that, and I was head coach there during a good time. We had a nice run. We were in, 7 or 8 bowl games, and we made the playoffs most of the years. We made the playoffs, but a couple of years we didn't, just because of the way the system was. But then they moved around. Tivoli Day's done some squirrely things. We used to had all the private schools in with the public schools, and it was they started off first. They went 3 classes, but they had classification was from 0 to 499, from 500 to 999, and didn't have perfect thirds. And there are some unnamed coaches in West Tennessee, and everybody can chuckle, always turned in 999 at their school.
Yeah, the new math.
The new math, and you went by the Honest John system. They didn't check you just sent in your enrollment.
Yeah, that didn't come till later when they used the State Department.
They started using State Department statistics, and those fortunes kind of turned the other way when we started to see who the real Honest Johns really were. So then they started using those numbers, but then they went to having they moved the private schools and doubled their enrollment, and then they still together, and then that wasn't good enough. And then you had a situation where they wanted to go to 4 teams per classification getting in. And some of this is driven by coaches, too. We can't just put that on TV.
Oh, yeah, because basketball coaches are just as bad. And it doesn't matter. You're right. Now, let's get back to the catastrophic. But basketball coaches want those extra championships awarded. Their biggest thing is they fussed at football coaches or the TSSAA's a football organ. No, TSSAA represents catastrophic insurance. You got to pay for it. It's expensive.
It changed. The whole landscape of football changed with that. They were. We were at one time, and you remember this, on helmet manufacturers. There used to be several of them, McGregor, Bike, Rydell. Then they were relatively cheap, $25. Yeah. But then overnight they go to $100 because of liability. Kids breaking their necks, and they're suing the helmet companies. Well, they pass on the cost to us. And then the coaches were getting sued because of this. So the TSSAA had to deal with a catastrophic insurance policy and how we're going to pay for it. And the membership voted, rather than sending everybody a bill, because the small schools wouldn't be able to afford it. There was no way. But so they decided to take half the gate in the playoffs. And in that half of the gate, they would pay the catastrophic insurance for every school, which meant that the teams would only get 25%. And that's the formula they're still using. They use that. Of course, now this excess money in addition to the catastrophic, I'm sure.
May not be after they build that $8 million building.
Who knows, man? I don't know where that's coming from. But
remember when they played all those Hall of Fame games and TSSAA, you played for free, and they got the whole gumball after expenses.
Right. And if you look at the playoff system, you lose money on the first game.
Yep.
You can't even make enough money to pay the officials.
Especially if you go to Memphis or Memphis comes to you.
Why don't you just go ahead and eliminate them during the season and bring back bowl games?
Yeah.
I mean, you can have bowl games at the end of the year.
That's all you need.
2 teams is all you need.
Yeah, we in agreement. I think O'Neal and Bud will agree with that.
I don't think any old coaches would. But again, you've got coaches out there that and I understand where they're coming from professionally. They want to have on the resume. We made the playoffs the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. That's kind of, it's overrated. Good administrators read through that. Now, if you're interviewing and hiring somebody and you just, wow, they made the playoffs, you better check how they made the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's do this. And we're here with this Sports 731 special. I want to call him councilman instead of coach now. He's impressed me. He's a good guy, but we're going to be the flamethrower of truth on some things and tell you some stories. And this is one of those times I tell you, call 5 friends and tell them that these stories are coming up. They want to be listening to these. First thing we want to take care of is a situation, and I have to clear Randy's name because I had my class reunion this year. And guess whose name came up? You're still blamed, not by everybody. I have
know
to
where
correct
this is
them.
going.
There was a field goal kicked in 1965 that kept Jackson High from winning every situation they call them mythical or paper national championships. You had the Litkus ratings, etc., like this. There was a field goal kicked, and it was the first time in I forgot how many years Jackson High did not score a point, and Ripley High School was the culprit. But Ripley High School was dangerous in the 60s, folks. Don't let anybody fool you. Tell them who really kicked the field goal, because you and I were just ninth graders, I think, when that happened.
I was a ninth grader. I was not on the varsity of that team, and I've always thought that was me that kicked that field goal because I went on, had a career kicking, and it was George Morris. He played guard. He's a left-footed kicker. In fact, people think when they go to Ripley High School, they took that shoe and put it in bronze, and it's in the trophy case at Ripley. Now, I'm assuming it still is, but they had a trophy case. But if you look closely, the shoe it's a left-footed. He was a left-footed kicker. I'm a right-footed kicker. But George Morris is the one to kick that. It wasn't me. I remember that well. Funny story how I got to kicking too. I tell you, this is on Roberts. His granddaddy got me a kicking. We were goofing off. The freshmen were. We was first day of practice, and we were all down there. And Tiny Knee rode around in a Jeep. Do you remember that?
Oh Lord, yes. I've ridden in that Jeep.
It never had a cover on it. Didn't matter if it's 10 below zero.
I know. I never understood that.
He had a 1947 Willys Jeep that he drove around. I think they had a little museum down there once, and I think somebody actually's got that Jeep. But anyway, he came up in his Jeep. Well, we didn't see him come up, and we were putting the ball on the tee and kicking it toward the goalpost. Well, I got up there and kicked it and went down there, and I didn't know he had driven up, and it landed right beside him in the Jeep on the passenger side. And he got out of there, and he was always said, "Daggone it, who kicked that ball down here?" And of course, I was being honest. I said, "I did." He said, "Well, you're going to be the kicker. Come here. I'm going to stay out here after practice." And so I became the kicker because I almost hit Robert Rooks' granddaddy with the ball. That's a true story.
It is true. Folks, we're the flamethrower of truth. Now, one of our comrades was in here earlier, and it's one of the best stories. Everybody asked me to repeat it. I cannot tell it like Randy. And then he's going to give you a John Tucker story. He can give us more than one on John, and if he wants to, we still got some time. Jordan hadn't come back in here yet. So, Randy, I'm going to turn the floor over to you and let you tell one on Jerry Hayes and as many as you want to on John Tucker.
Where'd I even begin with Jerry Hayes? I tell you what, he missed his calling. He should have been a stand-up comic. But now Jerry and I go back. He was at Southside, and I was at Union City. And I think Jerry had a racket going on the side of stealing footballs. Here's what happens. We go down the field and score. And my managers, they take a ball and put down there underneath the goalpost, and they catch the ball. Well, Jerry had a little fence around that down there in the north side on part of that end zone. So our kicker kicks it. Well, these kids catch it back there. Well, this one throws it to this one. And our manager's chasing them, trying to get the ball. Then they throw it to another one who throws it to another one. Then they all scatter in 15 different directions with brand new football. I mean, I kicked the ball, and those kids had a racket going. Knew they could catch that ball and throw it to one another. And my manager comes back up there, and he said, "Coach, I chased as far as I could. I couldn't get the ball." So I told Hayes after the game, I said, "Man, you guys out here stealing footballs." I was teasing him. Well, I'm going to fast forward this. About 2-3 weeks later, I get a box in the mail up at the high school sitting on the secretary's desk, and it had Coach Randy Barnes. I thought, oh, what in the world's in this box? So I opened it up, and there's a note from Hayes. He says, "Barnes, I found you football." He had a football in there that the bladder was sticking out of it. It looked like something you'd buy at the 10-cent store. and the bladder was wore out and everything else. He said, "I found your football." That joker did that. That's just kind of fun stuff that would go on right there.
Oh, and that was good for coaching and things like that. Let's talk about John Tucker. You and I experienced, because I did some of the film swaps. Some other of the coaches did. I picked them up. Sometimes it'd be all of us ride over with John. Well, and John was friendly with us, but now John wasn't going to let you one-up him. He was going to take care of business. But you got him. You roasted him.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
there. Jerry Hayes was there that night, and we both think it was a great thing that you did. I'm going to let you tell the story of the John Tucker roast.
Well, first of all, I can't believe it, Joe, that I did it, because they were raising money to build a field house down there by the concession stand. And so the Booster Club president called me up and said, we're going to do a fundraiser. He said, I know this might be awkward, but we're going to get some of the coaches, see if they'll roast John Tucker. I said, I no question. You can sign me up, no question about it. Well, now here's what John was notorious for. You would swap the films, and Milan would be driving down the field and say they got to the 40-yard line. The next thing you know, they're kicking off. The film would go like, you look at that film, it'd been spliced. The touchdown was gone. So how did they score? And you do it again, be another one. John, I'd say, your film, I don't know my filmer. He'd put his hands on his head and say, Randy, I don't know my filmer. He's just messing up. So when we roasted him, I had on my blazer coat. I said, John, I finally found what I've been looking for all these years. And I'd got in there and I'd cut up a bunch. I started pulling tape film out and throwing it up. I said, I finally found all those missing plays that were in that tape, in those 16 millimeters, and give them to John. Lord, I thought he'd die when he saw that. When we started doing that.
Well, there were people nearly rolled out of their
I'll
seats
tell you another
that
story
night.
on John
Yes,
Tucker.
please.
John was notorious. He'd like to come here while they're warming up, and he'd stand on the 50-yard line. He'd watch you. He was looking. Well, I remember one year, it went back to when I was working with Larry Shanks, and Shanks had a good record against John. Larry had a really good record against Coach Tucker. One year, Larry changed up the offense for that game and went to split back, put some split backs in it, and we won the game barely. So in practice on Thursday, I tell my players, I said, okay, their coach is going to be down there watching us warm up. And I would hold up this cards and say, all right, I'll get in this formation. It might be split back. It might be eye. And we're going to run the tall sweep here, both sides. So I'd wait until John would start walking down there, and he'd try to be sly and sneaky down there. He's down there looking. So we'd get in split back because I knew he'd remember that, those kind of things. So we started running a tall sweep. The kids, they knew what we were doing. Well, I can see John now. He'd take off down there and see, he had a good staff. He had Glenn McAdams and some of them guys all coached for him, Bobby Sharp, people like that. They were assistant coaches.
And Bobby Sharp was back in Milan.
Yeah, he's back in Milan, yeah.
After a very successful career at Hohenwald/Lewis County.
Yeah, Mike Jenkins, Daisy Collins coached for him, Bona, down there.
Bill Bona.
Yeah, Bona was really good. He had some good coaches that were there. But anyway, he'd go down there. I can see him down there now. My sisters, we get a big kick out of it, just aggravating him much as anything. But it was good. It was good stuff.
Oh, it is. Coaches had such a good rapport
I'll
with
tell you
each
another
other.
one I had on Butch Baker. You remember him down in Lake County?
Oh, Lord, yes.
There was
Butch
people remember
Baker.
Cliff Sturtevant was the head coach and Butch was assistant. And then Cliff went to Huntington and Butch became head
Yeah,
coach.
Cliff left after that 1980 team that
at
was
once.
so good.
Yeah, Jerry Reese, who was the general
Yeah.
manager of the New York Giants, he was he was his quarterback, which I still call Jerry Reese to this day when Lake County is playing Union City, because Jerry kicked a field goal and beat us 10-7 when I was a head coach at Union City. And I tell him to this day that ball didn't go over the goalpost; it went under him. That those officials came from the VFW down at Lake County. I just tease him about it all the time. I said, and anyway, that ball went through those goalposts. But anyway, so I'm playing Lake County, and I look up in the office again. There's a box there. It had, to me, it was from Lake County. I thought, what in the world? Because they were coming up to our place to play. I open it up. and it's some light bulbs. And he had in there. Now you got to understand. Now Butch and I went to college together.
Yeah.
And he was from Halls, I was from Ripley, but so we knew each other in college. He sent me that. He said, "Hey Barnes, I just want to make sure you had some extra buzz up there because we're going to light up that scoreboard on Friday night." I said, "You the soft," and he did because he was better than us that year. They
could do.
They had a period of time where they had some of the best athletes that you've ever seen.
Butch always had some big old
Oh
linemen.
my
Him and
goodness,
Sturdivant
they could
both
play,
did.
man.
Well, now, did you ever coach against Andy Pugh at Halls?
I did.
Andy had one team that was
he had
lights out. Too.
He had one kid. I think he might have come in there, and he moved away, and I think he might have set the national record in a 100-meter dash. I can't remember that guy's name, but he was there.
Yeah, it was that running back, wasn't it?
He had some of the fastest kids you've ever seen in your life. And
Tupperware factory left Halls though, and that hurt
really
a lot of people lost jobs.
They did, and a lot of places did. You know, the factories went. Ripley had several factories.
Y'all done a good job at Union City because Goodyear moved out the big operation, but another company came in and took over.
Well, the uniqueness about makes Union City a special place. We're a city school. The whole time that I coached, we never had school buses. Like most school districts have school buses. So
I'd never seen a school bus when I was in school.
We never had any school buses. It was a city school, and it was kind of the city is very unique. Football there in Union City is very important to that city. Yeah. You know, on Friday nights, you dress up. The kids on Friday dress up in purple and gold.
I was going to say, y'all only since 1950, there's only one decade of the 60s that y'all have ever had a losing record.
Oh, it's no question.
Otherwise, y'all have been dominant.
We've won 4 state championships. Coach Bolin.
Well, you had 2 runner-ups.
2 runners-up, and I'm proud of those. Really, Dorica. We probably pulled off the most near upset in the history of the TWA. We were playing Alcoa now in the year 2000, and we got down at halftime. We was down 27-0 at halftime against Alcoa.
In the Alcoa Invitational.
Yeah, the Alcoa Invitational.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to get some of that. And so we were playing Alcoa, and I go in halftime, and I said, "All right, guys, here's what we got to do. You know, we found a couple of things that are going to work." And I really questioned whether or not I really believed it or not. I was just trying to build up their spirits. I was hoping we were going to get the doors blown off of us. But we went out. I'd be darned if we didn't score in the opening series and got 27-7. Then it got 27-14. Then it got 27-20. And we got the ball on the 1-yard line. And I had Mr. Football, Mario McElrath, who was Mr. Football, in the backfield. And I went out there, and it was my last time out. And I said, "Hey, guys," I said, "when we score, we're going to go for 2. It's 27-20. And I said, "We're going for 2. Run the same play to the left. We're going to beat these guys." And I'd be darned if we didn't get stopped 1 foot from going the last play of the game. So I kind of tell people, that's the story of my life. I said, my golf game is just good enough to be bad, you know, and I've always one shot out, you know, it seems like. And then, Darren Bolin came in and we won. And Wes Kennedy's the superintendent there now.
Yes, Wes old football coach too. Yeah, well, I think he coached at Fayette Academy too.
He did. He was a head coach. He was head coach there at Fayette Academy, and good football people. And Darren's at TCA now.
Doing a good job.
Doing a good job. And one of his assistants, Wade Maddox, is a new head coach. We got a new head coach.
I'm excited about that.
He's
and of course,
really
Robin Francis is going to call y'all's games and stuff.
It's going to be great. He's been for the program for a long time, and they built a new stadium. It's really pretty. It reminds you of the one in Milan. Built a whole new stadium.
Okay, so I knew y'all were working on it.
Yeah,
it was once upon a time War Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, it still
and
is.
if I'm not wrong, it's Randy Barnes Field.
It is. Well,
congratulations.
You usually got to be dead for that to happen.
Well, you ain't dead yet, son.
Well, you know, as War Memorial Stadium, just a quick plug about that, they played at Turner Field in Union City. It's where the Greyhounds. You got to be an old guy to know this. The Union City had a professional baseball team. They were a farm club of the St. Louis Cardinals, and they were called the Greyhounds. And so they raised money. The VFW helped raise the money in 1954 to build that. They modeled it after Brownsville Stadium. It's built just exactly like the one in Brownsville.
Now, y'all didn't run the track through the corner of the end zone, did you?
No, we didn't do that. That's Ripley. But they built that, and they raised $30,000, and they did it as a tribute to World War I, II, and Korean veterans, and that's why you see those flags out in front. It's called War Memorial Stadium because the VFW is the one that helped raise the money to build the stadium.
Well, an off-football question. The baseball team, do y'all still have a summer baseball team that's kind of semi-pro or something that plays?
They had
y'all
that.
have a nice baseball
We
complex.
really do. They built that complex because they started a wood bat league for college kids there. And
Well, is that the same league that that Fulton City's got a
Fulton's
team, the
still in it.
Railroaders?
They're still in it.
Okay.
But Union City's not in it anymore. But you ended up getting a real upgrade on your baseball facilities are just
Well,
outstanding.
Union City was once in the old Kitty League that Ellis Kinder that went
That's
to the
exactly
major
right.
leagues.
That's exactly
came
right.
out of.
That's exactly right.
But anyway, great facility. Let's get back to football
Okay.
though, a little bit.
All right.
Just a brief statement. You did have a great back. Mario McElrath, 2000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Football.
Exactly. Great running back. He had a lot of speed, had some power. You know, we had been in the championship game in 1997, and that was the first time that we'd ever played in the state championship. We played against Chattanooga Tyner, and we played against them, and the kids got a taste of. We kind of just kept pushing the bar forward, and when they started moving the private schools out, because our road always went through MUS.
Yes.
I mean,
John Tucker fussed about them
we fussed
quite a
about
bit.
it forever. I mean, then if you beat MUS, you got to play Brentwood Academy the next week.
Yep.
And so most of our roads of the public schools were dead ends. I mean, probably the best football team I had, Joe, honestly, was in '92. They were 10-0 and 11-0, and we barely lost to MUS. But anyway, Mario McElrath was a great running back. That was a great football team. But as I said, we almost pulled the comeback up, and we got beat 27-20, and it was just it was a good times. And then they take it, and Coach Fisher, Jimmy Fisher, when we came head coach, they played against Trousdale County in Single A. They went to Single A after I left. They went to Single A and played in the Single A division for a while, and then they went back to the Double A division and still won a state championship in 2A, and so. It's been 2017 since they've won the state championship, and they're looking now, building a new stadium. They got some enthusiasm going. I think there's some good days ahead.
Going back to Smouth Mash football.
They're going to probably go back to that.
Mouth
yeah,
football.
Football, and they've done a lot of things in their off-season program.
And we know that Coach Maddox's defense will be top.
They'll be tough.
That's one of his specialties.
He was the defensive coordinator, and but I think he's going to do the offense this year. I think he's kind of moved assistants around a little bit, but exciting for the community there.
1-3 in 1903, but I cannot find who the coach was then.
I don't think
happen to
anybody
know,
knows.
Nobody knows. And then obviously around 1912, 1914, things got a little better, a little bigger schedule. I was looking over here at my notes to see. First coach I have record of is I only have a last name, Faxon, and he went 5-0 in 1912, I think.
Wow.
And I think that's right. I could be wrong about that.
Well, you know, they were in the West. They had, and I'm not sure how it worked, Joe. There's a couple of championships in there that were called the West Tennessee Football Championship.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what that was exactly.
Well, in '38, it actually was a form of the TSSAA playoff. TSSAA was involved. Jackson High, the reason I know this, Mr. Oman showed me this stuff on. They got beat by Elizabethton for the state title, but they had been the West Tennessee champions.
Okay.
And then there was a couple of other.
There was in the 1920s that even Union City played
Yeah.
Hall Moody College.
Yes.
And they played Union University's freshman team.
That's a bigger thing than you
I know
think
that.
back then.
I mean, that's something,
Because
isn't it?
Memphis State was Memphis Normal, and they
Yeah.
played some high schools.
Played high school teams.
Union Bethel had a team. Remember, John Tucker was a football player at Bethel before they disbanded
that's true.
the team the
and
first
Ronnie
time.
Carter went to Bethel.
Oh, Ronnie's in the Hall of Fame up there.
Yeah.
I think Tucker is too.
Yeah.
You're in a couple of Hall of Fames, aren't you?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I'm in the Union City. I guess they finally got rid of me. No, I'm there in my old alma mater at UT Martin, and happy about that. And it was quite a privilege to be inducted to the SAA Hall of Fame. There's a lot of good people, you know.
Oh,
that are in
Lord,
there.
yes, they really are.
In
Going
West
back to
Tennessee.
first director of the TSSAA. Now, they had a TSSAA before he became the executive director, but A.F. Bridges, A. Foster Bridges, followed by Gil Gideon, another West Tennessee who had coached at Lexington, came to Jackson to coach Tigert Junior High and then became a principal, and they got Gil to be. Of course, Ronnie Carter
was
is
their
legendary.
assistant. You know, Ronnie came down here with Gil, and of course, you know, TSSAA started in Trenton. I think y'all talked about
basement
that.
of the school.
Yeah, and Mr. Bridges was really a great guy. I mean, it's really amazing how much it's grown.
Well,
but they do a nice job. They honor the coaches, administrators, officials, contributors. They have that each year in the spring, and they always invite the people who are inductees. Mickey Marley was recently inducted.
It's a great banquet,
and
stuff.
It's really a great thing.
Speeches
they do it
are
right,
good, and if you haven't gone, I saw Buddy Patey work the whole room. He was a little bit late, and while the program is going on, Buddy works the whole room just like a politician.
Man.
Of course, he was a commissioner here in Jackson
Exactly.
when we had the old commission for him ago. And if you don't know who Buddy Patey is, one of the great officials in high school and college, also in SEC. Yeah, he, Harold Johnson, and now Mike Taylor, all three are SEC officials.
Let me tell you what I did for them. Buddy called me about it. They wanted to have a special event where that all these officials would come together. So I had Buddy Patey and Jerry Carpenter, Scribner, what was his name? Scribner was his last name.
Billy Scribner.
Yeah, Billy Scribner. And Mike Taylor, his first year, who's now an SEC official.
And a good one, too. Gets bowl games every year.
And a good one. So they had a special thing in the newspaper and all this and that, TSSAA did, of how this old group of the officials, and they officiated my game against Ripley in that game, and that was really special for us, too.
Oh, it is. I'm very proud of Mike. He played for George Neely and I in junior high.
That's
before I went over to the high
he's a
school.
UT Martin. He played on the 1988 Gulf South Conference champion team.
Yes,
he was
did
a
a good
great
job.
player. He was a center on the team.
Graded out quite well. Yeah, you know, he's played on the offensive line. He's played every position and mastered whichever one he played. But as Bud was talking about, he was a whale of a defensive player, was a good linebacker and even better defensive end. And Martin at one time they weren't sure whether they wanted to play him on offense or defense. If they chose the offense, I think it was a good move.
It was. He was a good player over there. He's a good guy and good official, really good official.
Any player, I know you loved every one of them, but were there a couple that touched your heart at Union City?
Oh, I can't single out anybody. You know, every team kind of stands on its own merit.
You love every one of them. They're special in their own way.
You can relate to this, Joe, because you coach forever. It isn't just about the wins and losses. Like some people say, what were some of the best teams you had? I said, you really want to know? I said, I coached 21 years and had one losing season. We were 4-6 one year. And I said, I'll be honest, that was one of my favorite teams because they should have lost every game. They didn't have any talent. We were young. They did everything we wanted to do. The league was tough. And I said, they really played hard. And then I had other teams that were great defensive teams. They were fun. Then great offensive teams, you know. And so every year it changes. I always had a special place for the linemen because they always, you know, they were always kind of didn't get their names in the paper. And Barry Duncan was my line coach forever. He and Bobby Williams and Jimmy Fishel and Mac Moore, we coached together for a long time.
It's a good crew of people. I've got to ask you about Bobby. He spent time at Trenton, and he came
That's right.
two times at Union City, I believe.
Bobby has been there twice, and, you know, we went, I think it was 3 years one stretch without ever giving up a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable. Bobby I still see him, he lives a block away from me, and we hang out. But Bobby was a great coach, and when I retired, Barry and Bobby both retired as well. And Bobby became a middle school coach for several years until he retired. And Barry became an administrator. And Barry now heads up the FCA in West Tennessee there.
Oh, that is great that you do that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Well, you
bunch
know,
of guys.
Okay, toughest, and there's so many of them. To be honest with you, we as coaches, every team we play is tough on Friday night. But some teams, maybe a Huntington, a Mile, and a couple of them like that.
Man,
that's
I tell you
tough
what,
to pin it down, but
get
just
in
name off
line.
4 or 5.
Well, in Humboldt's day, they were
Yeah.
back in the 70s, they were the team to beat. Jack Kane was there. They had some great running backs. Junior Reed, you remember?
Well,
all that grew over
seemed
there.
like, didn't they line up in the straight eye?
Oh,
or
they
solid
run that
eye
old solid eye.
sometime?
That was Jack Kane and John Hooper brought that back from Florida State.
Yeah.
They went to a Florida State clinic, and Fred Pickard, who later became a head coach at UT Martin, was the tailback. And they came back to West Tennessee with 3-man smoked eye.
Yeah,
And
well,
that's
you know Pickard played with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, that's right. He did. He sure did. But anyway, they teams. Milam was always well structured. You learned a lot. It helped me as a coach playing against those teams. I always had the Ric Flair philosophy: to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Yep.
And it's like no one's going to really take you serious until you beat the man. And I always tell young coaches, don't be afraid to play. It may expose some weaknesses that you have, but it's what you got to do to grow the sport and grow as a coach. And only thing we were talking about earlier, that with all the technology and electronics today, Joe, it's the coaches don't get to spend time with each other. They don't see each other in coaching clinics, changing films, doing the Fred Johnson barbecue. You know, you had the guys from Northside here. I remember Johnny Williams having all the coaches in West Tennessee at Northside High School to do the scheduling. The day that they came out with classification, they sent it out, and we all met at Northside, and you meet in the rooms, and you go around and get your football schedule, you know, home and away games. Of course, you would set your district games, but then you look for your off game. Just stuff like that was good.
You're like me on that. One thing that hits me is I remember when we either went to the Hut or Shoney's. Yeah, there were coaches. Every coach in Madison County, sometimes from Humboldt, the Milan coaches would come down to Jackson, but the officials were there.
The officials
and
were
it
also
was
there
nice.
too.
It was great. I don't care whether you dropped they dropped a bad flag, or in your opinion a bad flag on you or something like that. Everybody had time. We swapped stories.
They
we
were
talked.
so funny.
We asked about family.
They were
and
some of my
everything.
best friends. I still see some of them today, and some of those stories, funny one-liners you tell them. I never forget Jerry Carpenter coming over. When we had an incident in the stand, everybody was looking. Somebody had a health issue in the stands. And Jerry Carpenter could walk over. He said, "Randy, what's going on up there?" I said, "Jerry, I think somebody fainted because you got a call right." So Jerry said, "You sorry, you know," and there were just wonderful times that were there with the officials, and I miss all those guys. I really do.
One night I was scouting up sometime back in the old days. You got film, but sometimes you had to send a scout ahead, especially
Oh, we
with the
did
teams
that.
that clipped film and
Oh,
stuff.
man,
And there was
yeah.
I'm serious, a football coach that'll remain nameless handed the referee a tin cup with pencils and sunglasses in it before the ball game. It's a wonder but he didn't kick him out, and that's a great story. And Coach Henry pulled that stunt at Union in a basketball game one time. I'll tell off on Bill. I love Bill to death, but he did do that, and I was standing right beside Bill when I said, "Oh Lord, I'm gonna get kicked out too." But they didn't kick Bill out. But back then, you know what? There was a little more tolerance, and I think we got some penalties in football, and sometimes a technical and bad. But I think we all knew where the line was, and the officials had a little bit. They would tolerate a little bit more too, and they had patience with you.
They did, and some of these guys, I've seen some of the other coaches, some of the funny stuff they would do. But the officials were always good friends of ours. You knew them, and you're talking about the teams that played. I was thinking just a while ago that you always play Huntington; they are always going to be a physical team. Southside was Bobby Wilson.
Oh yes, he was my junior high coach.
Bobby. Man, they were three. You couldn't ever stop them. If they got the ball, I swear you couldn't ever. They would line up.
Nasty slot is what they ran.
That's what they ran. It was like, golly, man, you could never see the ball.
And it was nasty
I
too.
told Bobby, I said, Bobby, I don't even know if the ball's got any air in it. I hadn't even seen it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's Bobby. And then Gene Kane Sr. played that split six on you, and that was a hard defense. Sometimes it was a regular six, but he loved that split six, and his linebackers were protecting. They scrape in those holes and bite you like a vampire when you ran the football.
They were tough, and you had Milan. Trenton was always a team that was. They were a small school in a very, very big pond in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But Walter Kilter was the last coach, I think, to have them dang leather helmets. Like this thing here.
That right there.
That right there.
Yes.
I remember hitting in high school. It about killed me. Those boys wore leather helmets. Up until 1969, they wore leather helmets. I don't know when they started wearing something, but it had a mask on it.
Yeah, they had
masks
usually it's
on.
one of those white, they called them a 2-bar, but it was solid in here, and then it
Yeah.
went to 2 bars like this in front of you. Now, I had a Rydell like that I wore, but I had a T-bar on mine, and people wonder, what's the man do? The T-bar would attach to the top of your helmet, and then it would snap on. You'd put tape around it
Oh,
to
yeah.
keep it from coming off.
That was the way. I used to tell people, I said, we had some leather football shoes at Ripley. I said, I'd take cleats out of them, wear them to church. Everybody laughed, but
Well,
you really
you remember
couldn't
when-
because they had the spikes, if y'all
Yeah, well, you had to
remember.
take that wrench to get it off, and sometimes
the-
that post would.
The post would still be there, and you screwed your cleat into
Yeah.
that. Now the post is in the cleat, and you screw it up in there.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I liked it when the Pumas came out. They were molded, and of course that was because just the start of AstroTurf and stuff wasn't much around here, but they thought we needed Pumas. Then my last year I didn't get to wear them because I was hurt, but they had the Rydell XP10 speed shoe that had a little old thin metal plate in it that held it together. It was actually made out of kangaroo leather. And they were called speed shoes because you're supposed to be able to run faster wearing them.
I remember the Pumas when they came out.
And they didn't have metal tap.
oh
Remember
no,
metal tap?
they had rubber things on
I
the
got
bottom.
a cleat mark on my chest where Steve Stoops, those metal taps would cut your uniform.
Oh yeah.
Was your uniforms over at Ripley, if they were damaged, they'd send them down Johnson's and they'd sew a little cloth patch behind them, and there was a little cross stitch
they
like
do
that.
We take them down there, but you're talking about that team at Brownsville. You were talking about Stoots and all that, but Rocky Felker was their quarterback,
Yes.
and I think the Badur brothers were the guards.
They were the
twins,
guards.
Harry and Larry.
Fine set of
And
Galen Hill.
was on that team as well.
Well, you know that Rooks had to move from quarterback to the up back in their solid eye or smokehouse eye, whichever one you want to, or straight eye. Some people call it. Jack Tatum called it. He was the original guy at Maryland,
Yeah.
and then it spread and. You could pass out of it, but John was like Richard. If Haywood threw more than 3 passes, they were behind. Now, Jackson High, if we threw 3 passes, we were behind.
I remember Jack Kane ran that 3-man eye at Humboldt, and we had Tony Champion was the quarterback, and he'd run that old, called it Green 16. I know the name of the play. It was a flood route, but the quarterback had the option to run him. I mean, you're sitting there with a guy like Tony Champion, who played Canadian football and was really great at UT Martin. He was really good. But going back to that, Rocky Felker, who left from there, he was the SEC Player of the Year.
Yes, and they won the bowl game out in Arizona,
He did.
the Sun Bowl.
And he was the head coach there.
Yeah.
But when I was working at UT Martin, we would play money games. We call them business propositions.
Yes.
And they would pay us to play. So we were playing Mississippi State, and I get off the bus, and I knew that Rocky was there. And I said, "Where is Coach Felker?" He said, "It's right." Went over there, and we just started talking Ripley High and Brownsville football over there. Years have passed, and we were just, talking there. But he's well thought of down in
Well,
Mississippi
even
State.
after being head football coach, he came back in retirement and was like alumni
That's
director.
what he was doing
and,
when I was there.
Yeah,
When we
several
said-
things like that.
Yeah.
And Rocky, very talented young man. His dad, Babe Felker, one of the great assistant
Right.
coaches, and actually was head coach at Tennessee Academy for a while.
That's right.
When it was
and John
existing.
Hooper, you remember when he went to Old Hickory Academy,
Yeah,
which
Old
became US
Yeah,
Tech.
Larry McBride had been there for a year or two. Larry went to Florida, and Larry had come from Jackson Jr. over there. And when they got John, he brought his son David. And they played a big time schedule at Old Hickory Generals.
Sure was. Hey, can I come up with a quick story?
Yeah.
Old Hickory Academy. John Hooper comes up there to Union City playing, and it's about 1981 to maybe 80, maybe late 70s. But John Hooper was famous for trick plays at the end of right before half, and if he was behind later on. Well, one of them was a guard around,
Yes.
and where the center would center the ball, and the center would get down on his knees and let the ball lay on the ground, and the quarterback would go around the end with all the backs, and then one of those guards would act like he's blocking, and he'd reach over and pick it up and run it for a touchdown. So our nose guard, and this is going to be great. People are going to appreciate this. My nose guard was none other than the infamous professional wrestler Coco Beware,
The Bird
the
Man
Birdman,
himself.
who's in the World Wrestling Hall of Fame.
And his
might
bird
I
was Frankie the parrot or
Fair.
whatever.
So I told Coco, I said, now Coco, but right before half, this cat, if you find that center squats down to all fours, so I'll never forget it. So they run that play, and Coco in the film, he takes one step looking at that quarterback, and he looks back at that center, and he goes around and his arms were he's huge, strong kid. He pushed that guard out of the way, picked the ball up, and ran for a touchdown right before half. So it's Coco Beware. But,
Everybody remember that. Randy, I think we're supposed to enter. Jordan usually gives me the high sign and comes back in. But and plus, you've got a city council meeting for Randy.
I do.
Randy is a very busy man, and we want to thank him, just like the other guys, for coming in, giving us time. But you would be in favor of a show like a Johnson's Day show
There's
one
no
more
question
time
about
at
it.
least.
In fact, I was coming up here. I've been thinking about that. It would be great if we had a West Tennessee football alumni group. You know, Rufus Lassiter started when we used to have a West Tennessee Football Coaches Association. And we would meet every year at the Brownsville Country Club and grill out steaks and just shoot the breeze. And it was just a get together. And it would be really nice if some of the old guys, so many have passed on, so many great coaches. You can go on and on to every school.
Well, we
And guys
learned
like you,
something
Joe,
today, and
I appreciate you,
yeah.
keeping it alive, and some of the guys that come back.
The people still love us. Trust me,
And,
I get to hear it and all the time from people.
It's just a different era.
It really is.
The
We got to get
the
Don
rules are
Cody
different.
involved too.
Get Don is a great guy.
And there's some other guys
Yeah,
out there. We
yeah.
just got to get out there and, Randy, maybe we need to work. But I think we need to work towards getting all of them together, and we can swap true stories, lies, etc., have fun, eat well, and give the people, we'll tape it or something, and give
that would
people
be
something
great.
to enjoy it
Well,
about.
I've enjoyed being
Well,
here,
you
and I
got a
appreciate
final
it.
statement. Everybody gets to give a final statement.
I'm so thankful that I was in Union City. It's a great little community to be in, and it was a great area to coach in, and great town to live in, and we're not the only ones, but there's, like Coach said, there's more to it just in the X's and O's. It's about making relationships, and over a period of time, I've made a lot of friends and I've made a lot of friends in coaching and in other areas. So been blessed.
It's like old coach told me, Tom Fannis first one say it, Terry Oman the second, Richard Ross the third, John Hooper the fourth. It's not about the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes.
It's the Jimmies and the Joes.
And good friends like you, and only being assistant. Sometimes I wish now I'd pursued football, but I made the mistake of winning a district championship in girls basketball.
I knew that. You were quite the girls basketball coach.
I became that. I
quite the
didn't
legend
win it.
too,
Well,
by
I
the
didn't
way.
win it. My girls won it. They made old coach look
It
good.
takes a
Bud's
chef.
daughter was one
It
of
takes
them.
a chef to make the salad.
Well,
You can have
thank
all
you.
the ingredients.
Shea Piercy
Stir. And the more you win, the more it's expected of you now. You know that.
You're right about that, and that did.
Harder to stay on top than it is to
we
get
got
on
to play the
top.
number one team in the nation in the state tournament,
you go.
Shelbyville, and we came up a point short. You
like
and I have
Alcoa.
something in common there. I know about
We came
Alcoa.
up
And
short,
here he is.
but-
We've been looking for him, but I'm gonna tell you what, Randy, this has been great. You have agreed, and I'm dropping hints at my boss. He's one of the greatest players at Southside. Don't let him fool you.
Uh-oh.
He and his brother, and Jerry Hayes even said some nice stuff about him a while ago. So that makes him good. But again,
Jerry owes me a football. He's never given my
a
football
real
back.
football, not
a
that
real,
bladder.
not that old bladder he gave me.
Okay, they definitely want to hear Robin Francis and Eddie Suter do the color at Union City, right?
Right.
Because you're going to be listening to some.
Oh,
You'll be there
Robin's
at most
great.
of them, but you
Yeah.
go back
Oh,
and watch
yeah.
them. I know Randy does. Hey, we've got the same kind of stuff. You heard Coach Pritchard, he and Brian. Oh, me, if you hadn't got them, our Westview staff is something to lo and behold. Matter of fact, I think Jordan's got a couple of things out on Facebook if you want to see, and he's going to get everybody up there. We have the legend is going to call Lexington, he and his son. And yes, Dan Hughes is back. doing Lexington football where I think he ought to be doing it. We got great people in McKenzie and Henry County, Trenton Peabody. Oh, you're going to love the young man doing it. And Daniel Hodges will be back doing color.
Well, get old Tim Haney up here too. Lord, he goes.
We need to get Tim. That's another one we add to our list. We got to have one of those shows like we talked about. The older guys, we have all agreed we'll come and dig up some more. How about that? We're going to end it here, but one last hint. Don't miss it. And on this is big enough. Don't call 5 friends. Call 25 friends. Friday, August 14th, 10 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. Your name will be put on a list if you're missing. We're going to check roll out there on you. You want to hear this football show. It will be there every Friday at 10 o'clock, headed up by the man who's behind the controls now. He's going to sit in this chair I am. He does a wonderful job. I was part of it last year when we did a show. This one, bigger, better. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, pick games, and we may be talking about you. Sports 731, the leader in sports. It's sports731.com, the app, and the Facebook page, the flamethrower of high school sports in West Tennessee. Thank y'all. Thank you, Randy, for being here.
Great.